Hi, Mary. How are you doing, my dear friend? I miss you. I really do. I miss going to lunch at Flying Saucer. Eh, so let's see how many people there are here. You and Anna. Fairy, yeah, tooth fairy. Hi, how are you doing, my dear?
You have to wait until the 5 seconds of ads go through.
Yes. How are you doing, dear friends? Okay. So, we're going to be talking about sweaters. And I am in love with making sweaters. I always have been. That was my business in Guadalajara before I went to the United States. I made sweaters, I sold them, I had fashion shows, I had I don't know how many sweaters I have. I had people knitting for me because of the amount of sweaters that I sold. And what I did is I never had two sweaters alike. Always had, like, if I had a design, a specific design, I would make that design in different colors. But if it was an intricate design, like changing yarns and all that kind of thing, I had one lady that worked for me that was magic. She had magic hands, and we were the only ones knitting those fancy ones. And I would make my chart or design on a ¿cómo se llama de cuadritos?
Uh, like a square.
Just little squares, the pages with little squares. Anyway, like so. Let me show you, like so. See? So I would make my design there. Now, for regular sweaters, it doesn't matter which stitch I made. I would make my swatch, of course, because you should always do that. You don't know how your net is going to look if you don't do that. So, and then I made a very simple design like this. So let me show you. For example, this is the sweater that I want to make, and I know that from here to here I want 30 centimeters, from here to here also, and I want, let's say, 80 stitches, and maybe I want a ribbing at the bottom, and then I would write the ribbing at the bottom. And I would say, okay, I want 12 rows of ribbing and then the stitch. And then I would make a design like this, for example, for the neck. And I knew that I needed to take 14 stitches first, and then 2, and then 2. And I need to show you how to take stitches off on your neck so that it doesn't show as much. You don't want the ladder kind of thing. And then I would have the sleeve, and then how many, on which row do I need to take off. And then this has to be the same as this. So anyway, I did my chart here. It was a basic chart, and I never wrote the instructions. I would just look at the sweater, knit the back first. Knit the back first so you know how many rows you want for the length that you want. And based on the back, and then you decide the fronts. Now, the fronts, sweaters that are more intricate, like the Aran sweaters. Aran sweaters are different, mostly pullovers. And the Irish used them a lot for fishermen and for farmers that would go out It was very cold, and they would use like unwashed wool, and that's where the Shetland wool comes from. And they would not. It was unwashed wool, and so it was like like off white, beige, like wool color, natural wool color, and so they used smaller needles because they wanted their work to be tight because they didn't want air to go through. So it was a little bit cumbersome to wash. They did not wash their sweaters that much, but it's not like they needed to. And so it's not like they used a lot of soap either. So what they did is, since the water was cold anyway, they would wash it in cold water and then lay it flat to dry so it won't shrink. Shrinkage happens when you put stuff in the dryer. You don't do that. Wash your stuff by hand because you invest so many hours knitting your piece, and if you're going to wash it, give it a little bit of extra time and wash it by hand and block it. Put it on, take the excess water in a towel, wring it, and then take your piece and put it over another towel to dry flat. You even need a tape, measuring tape, to see if it's the measurements you want it to be, but then block it. And wool is very gentle. Wool is very nice. Now, of course, Shetland wool is a little bit itchy. So that's the truth. Shetland wool is itchy, and but not in the cold. I once read that in cold weather, wool is not itchy because something happens to the wool, probably shrinks like so, and it doesn't itch. So the merino wool is different. Merino wool is very easy to wash and it's not itchy. There's something about merino wool. Most of the merino wool now comes from Australia. But anyway, so let's talk about Aran sweaters or Irish sweaters. There's also Norwegian sweaters or wool. But they use colors. Norwegian sweaters, Norwegian people like colors and stars and diamond shapes and all that kind of thing. The Irish are more of combination of stitches. So yes, Norwegian sweaters.
Our favorite Norwegian isn't here today.
So what happens is, for example, there's several stitches, and I think Anna is going to post several stitches that are used for Irish sweaters, for Aran sweaters. So they used a lot of cables. A lot of cables, and some of them are very intricate ones, the Celtic cables, and there's a lot of beautiful cables that they made because cables twist in the back and make the fabric thicker, and especially with the pearl stitches that you need to make the cable stand out, those go like in the back. So it makes the sweater pretty thick. Also, like there's a lot of stitches. The Trinity stitch is also one that is very thick, that can become very thick, and the cables represented the fishermen's ropes. So the ropes. So that's what it represented. And they used a lot of symbolic uh, things in their nets. So uh, there is. Let me see what I have. That they had. I had it written down here like the wishbone cable and okay, let's see. And then my mother made beautiful Aran sweaters that she now, after a long time, people started copying the stitches and used them for uh, in colors like navy blue or wine color or stuff like that. And so the Scottish were different. The Scottish were more like played. So it depends on where they want. So the Aran sweaters used a lot of 6 stitches like this. See, this is like the honeycomb stitch. We don't have it. I'm still going to make a tutorial on this. But see how stitches go inside, like they go in and some of them cross on top. So it makes the fabric kind of tight. And since they used smaller needles, for example, if your worsted weight yarn says, or in general, worsted weight yarn will say like use size US 7 to 9, which is 4.5 millimeters to 5.5. So within that range, go to the smaller one, go to the smallest range because your stitches will stand out very nicely. Let me show you what the back looks like so you can see how it becomes like three-dimensional. See, that's what the back looks like. So they used the cables, they used the Trinity stitch, they used the double seat stitch, they used the rice stitch. Uh, Stitches that when you're knitting with small needles, they become pretty thick. So a lot of ribbing also, because stitches go in and out of into the thickness of the fabric. So that is very nice.
Toothfairy has a question.
What? Yes, and I saw that she was block stitch or what?
No, her mom was knitting a sweater for children size 1 year old,
Uh-huh.
and it was way too big. And she followed the yarn and needles that were suggested. What do you think happened?
She didn't make us watch. Sorry, but you have to measure the child and measure your swatch. And that's what happened. And it's very common, especially with children, because what some patterns believe are the measurements for a 2-year-old, who's 2-year-old? For example,
like in China it's super tiny, and in the
Yes.
US it's like 2 times that big.
Let me show you,
Like
Anna.
Nico, my son, he's always been a big boy. He's never gonna be the size that he should be. He's gonna be 10 times bigger than that.
For example, Nicholas is going to be 7, and he wears a size 14. So, it's very difficult. And then one pattern would consider size 2 in Norway, and it would be a size 0 in Japan. So, it depends. So yes, Tooth Fairy, please tell your mom that she needs to make a swatch. Measure the child. Always, always, always. I had to ask Anna what size is Nicholas when I lived in the United States. What size is he? Well, he's big. Sure, but like I had to buy a medium in the child's department when he was 5 or 4 or something like that. And so it has to do with the brand. So sometimes you have to go to a store, look at which I did a lot of times. I would go like to see like at Target or places like that, and I would see a sweater size 2, let's say. I would measure, make my notes there, and the neck and the arms and the length and everything on the size that I knew would fit the child, and then make my swatch and stick to those numbers. I did a lot of that when Nicholas was growing up. With my children, no, because I had them there. I would just measure them and make the sweater because they were there. But for following instructions to Fairy, you really need to uh, measure and make your swatch.
Mom, there's another Joanne here, Joanne Clark, and she wants to look at that honeycomb stitch again. She's asking how thick it is, and
It is.
show her like the volume because you can't really.
See it?
You can see.
Can you see it?
The 3D part of it is really cool.
It's even a little bit holy. So what I would do for an Aran sweater was it would be like use smaller needles so these holes don't exist. See them?
I mean, I wouldn't even use this stitch for something that you want to be really, really warm.
It is. They use this stitch for something. Yes, they used, but it looked like this. See, it looked much tighter because the needles they used were very much smaller. So they would use very small needles for their knits. They wanted that, and they used the honeycomb a lot, like big panels in the front. Maybe it was their only ventilation. Maybe that was their way of ventilation, just not straight like this, but maybe up a little. I don't know. So let's see. Air pockets. Okay. Let's do it. That's a good idea. Yeah, ventilation. See, it would not go straight through. It would go down. So I don't know. I'm just speculating here. Hell if I know. So
we live on the beach, so we never wear this stuff.
No, I used to wear these things in Guadalajara because it would get cold, but not with small needles. My mother made a lot of Aran sweaters, a lot of them, for all her grandchildren. We all really enjoy them. And now the Aran sweaters, now you can have them with buttons in front. The typical Aran sweaters were not buttoned. They were pullover. So fishermen.
The fairy says that mosaic knitting gets really thick.
Yes, mosaic knitting gets very thick because the yarn has to go to the back for every stitch that you knit. So if you're going to knit 3 stitches and then skip 2 or pass 2 and then knit 3 and then pass 2, all the yarn that goes in the back makes the yes, it makes it very thick. Anything The Norwegian sweaters, some of them have the design that go, like a U, like around like the neck would be like here, but the design would go like around this way, and so on this part of the sweater, it would be pretty thick and over the arms also because of the changing of the yarns, the crossing of the yarns in the back or the changing of the yarns. And yes, a lot of work, but very, very pretty. So, what what are you talking about?
Mm,
Oh, okay, I did show it. This is the way the back looks,
you're cut up already.
and this is the way the front. I'll make a, and then there's the petite honeycomb. I need to make a, um, a pattern. I need to make a video on the petite honeycomb. So,
Julie says that you're a nice teacher.
oh, thank you.
And
Thank
Joanne is
you.
from Ontario.
Oh, okay.
We have a lot of friends from Canada.
Yes,
A lot.
yes. We have people from all over. Some of them join us from India. Some of them Norway. So
Two fairies from
Sweden, Sweden. So
Alejandra is from Mexico City.
Alejandra,
Mm-hmm.
¿dónde está?
Más arriba.
Ah, okay. Hi, Alejandra. Okay, so there we have all the stitches that are used in Aaron's sweaters. Make sure, because since if you live in a very cold country, like Norway, like Sweden, so please use wool that has been treated. Because last time I think it was last time that I talked about uh, critters living in your yarn, so that you freeze the wool and then take it off and then put it back in the, shake it and then put it back in the freezer for a few hours, maybe a couple of days. Ben, un abrazo, Alejandra. Gracias, gracias, gracias. So, uh, but then wool has been treated very nicely, and there's the. I don't think you have to worry about them unless you buy your wool from strange mills. But wool is very easy to find and very treatable. So uh, these times you don't have to worry about that. But then if you live in a country like Mexico, you do not need 100% wool, especially where we live. I mean, we don't wear sweaters. We wear sweaters maybe a weekend of winter. But in Guadalajara, we do because it has snowed. Guadalajara is as high as Denver, so it can get very, very cold. And so it's a very strange feeling because every time I go to Guadalajara, for a few hours, I feel like a little bit dizzy because of the change of altitude. So, and then I come back to the beach, to the level, to ocean level, and then I feel tired, like, okay. But we get used to those things if you travel from one place to the other often. So, Mexico City, I remember when I went to Mexico City, there it was very high, much, much higher. And I used to get very dizzy when I went there, even sick to my stomach. So, yeah, it happens. Yes, cotton too, Julie. Cotton too. Cotton is very, very nice. This is cotton. And it is made in Mexico. It's called Sinfonia. Sinfonia. It's very, very pretty cotton. It's I found my toothpick. Let me tell you about this. So this stitch requires that you put 2 stitches in the front and then knit 2 and then 2 stitches in the back and then knit 2. And sometimes you don't want to risk it, and they tell you to use a cable needle like this. But I find it very cumbersome because, okay, put your stitches and then turn it and put them back here. Okay, that's too much work for me. So I use a toothpick and I put the 2 stitches in the back, knit 2, put the 2 stitches in the front, knit 2. So toothpicks are magic. Really, I mean it. If you don't want it to prickly, just file them. Use a file and file it if you don't want it to. And then you can make it at any size you want. And see, if it's wood, your stitches don't slide as easily. So only when you want them to. So there you go. And yes, cotton is very nice to use, and it's very temperature wise. It will keep you warm or it would keep you cool.
I like that because, sometimes you want to be able to wear your sweater wherever you go.
Yes.
And if it's too warm or like it's very cold, then you can wear it. Or
Mhm.
if it's,
Wool is isolating material, so like linen is just wonderful, just beautiful material. So okay, nice top. Oh, me? Oh, it's a dress.
No, they call a nice tip.
Ah,
She just mistyped it.
okay.
Tip with
Nice tip. No, this is a dress. Thank you, thank you. Yes, what nice tip.
the toothpick.
The toothpick. Yes. When I make my cables, I use toothpicks. I use pencils. I use hooks. I use anything that I have.
Now we have beautiful stitch markers.
We have
Stitch holders.
We have stitch markers and stitch holders, but those are stitch holders, and they're round. You need your stitches to go in from one side and out on the other, like double pointed needles. Those are very, very good.
I like the ones that have the loop on.
Yes, I like the ones that go straight and then they have a little curve in the middle and then straight again because the stitches stay in the curve.
I saw that, Mary.
What the? Okay. What? Did you say something you shouldn't have?
No, she said nice dress too.
That's okay. No problem.
It's like when you're on a WhatsApp conversation and someone types something and then deleted it.
Yes, and then
now there's the
little question. What did she want?
Yeah. What do you want to say?
Yes. What did you change your mind about? Oh, Mary, you're so funny. Okay, dear friend.
She did say it after all.
Huh?
She did say it after all.
Yes, you did say it because you didn't have a choice.
La balconía. I put you on the spot, Mary.
Yes, and I put you on the spot. Anyway, thank you.
I'm like, I saw that, Mary.
Thank you for being with us, my dear friends. And I will see you next Wednesday at noon. You have a wonderful time, very wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. And